Geek Out!
Good evening and welcome to Slaggers. That's we're not talking about that song today.
I can't wait till we actually do.
No, that's a deep Beatles cut.
Oh,
That
so
is
good.
a very deep Beatles cut. We're going to be talking about I think an underappreciated album this week, though.
Sure, yeah.
This is the latest episode of, you know what, we're halfway through. I'm just going to call it Deconstructing the Beatles. Doesn't have to be a song lyric. Doesn't have to be Welcome to Slaggers.
No.
But yeah, we're talking about an album. I think, I don't think it's as good as some of the more previous Beatles albums that we talked to. Certainly not the last three. But Magical Mystery Tour.
Yeah.
I think a lot of the reason why it kind of gets overlooked is because first album they do after Sgt. Pepper's. The movie is the soundtrack. It's the soundtrack for is fucking terrible.
Yeah, it's like their first big kind of
Bomb.
real big misstep aside from comparing themselves to Jesus. But
yeah, it wasn't technically released in the UK. It was released as 2 EPs in the UK.
That's right. Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, even though it's got some of their biggest hits on it, I think. Strawberry Fields, Penny Lane, All You Need Is Love.
Baby, You're a Rich Man.
Baby, You're a Rich Man.
So cool.
So good. But those are all on Magical Mystery Tour.
Yeah.
But yeah, they put it out. They started recording it, so Sgt. Pepper's comes out the beginning of summer of 1967. They're already back in the studio recording Magical Mystery Tour or tracks that'll be on that album at the end of that summer. It really is kind of I think leftover song concepts from Sgt. Pepper's. Some of it's kind of a hodgepodge of an album, but there's some really solid stuff there.
Absolutely.
Have you ever seen the film Magical Mystery Tour?
I've never seen the entire film.
Good, because it's awful.
When I was working for Blockbuster, they really encourage us to use their version of Netflix, where you could rent movies and have it mailed to your house. And so one of the first free ones I did was you know what, I feel like I need to watch Magical Mystery Tour, and I rented it, and instead I got NASCAR's Greatest Hits. So
that was your sign from God.
Yeah, I was like, you know what, I'm not going to watch either of these. So I've seen, of course.
Who knows, man? It was NASCAR's greatest.
It was.
Hits.
It was their greatest hits. So great, it was implied. Or as freaking Niles Crane calls it, NASCAR. But no, I didn't watch it. Anyway, it's funny because this is Paul McCartney. The Paul McCartney reign is taking full effect because it works so well with Sgt. Pepper that and he's really taking over the band because the band's kind of just adrift without a leader.
Well, Brian Epstein dies during the Magical Mystery Tour sessions. He had been the manager of the band since '62.
Yeah,
he's instrumental in getting Ringo to replace Pete Best. And he dies of a heart attack in September of '67, 4 months or 3 months before the album even comes out in time for Christmas '67.
Yeah, and for me, everyone always talks about what broke up the Beatles. For me, Brian Epstein's death is what broke up the Beatles. It just took a couple more years for it to happen because that was the start of it.
Yeah. I will say for most of the Magical Mystery Tour and Sgt. Pepper's, for the most of the Magical Mystery Tour sessions, they're on the same page. It's what happens really during the White Album sessions that will but that's certainly
it's
kicks
starting
off.
that it's just that bomb hasn't gone off yet.
Yeah, the idea of them creating their own business without Epstein's guidance, once you start to mix money together, it gets pretty sticky, and like you were saying, McCartney kind of taking over the band and Harrison and Lennon resenting him for it. Yeah,
and then that resentment really starts to seep in there, and McCartney in years since, especially on the anthology documentary, really is hey, where else are you going to see I Am the Walrus?
Yeah,
performed.
It's the last time you really see Lennon as a Beatle without wearing glasses, too.
That's true.
After that, McCartney would say, looking back, as soon as he put those glasses on, it kind of became like a shield, He couldn't get close to his old best friend anymore.
Yeah, I think I might have mentioned this on, maybe the first episode we did, but one of my all-time favorite Lennon McCartney stories, because I always loved to hear, when they were true friends, and I feel like they always were at their core. They just let business get in their way, and they ended up, patching up. Thank God before, Lennon was killed. Is that with the glasses and that shield, that kind of armor protection that Lennon had, when they would be recording songs together and playing almost nose to nose like they used to back in 62, 63, 64, when they were really a songwriting team. Every so often, McCartney would look up and Lennon would see him looking at him, and he would pull the glasses down over his nose, and he would say, "It's just me, Paul. It's just me," like as like, you know, a reminder. And I feel like behind closed doors, I'm sure that friendship was still really there, but I'm sure they got in some fucking nasty.
We'll get into that in a couple episodes.
Yeah.
Definitely.
But anyway, that seed has unfortunately already been planted.
Yeah.
So
the idea with Magical Mystery Tour, so they're not, as we mentioned last week, they're not touring anymore.
Yeah.
You know, they are worn out. Harrison isn't interested. Lennon isn't interested. McCartney's really the only one interested in touring, and even at this point, he's like, "Oh, you know, we're good."
Yeah.
Because they had just done it for like 5 years straight. So they were like, "Well, how are we going to promote?" You know, MTV isn't a thing yet. Music videos, even though they've done promo videos for like Paperback Writer and for Rain. And
Rain is so cool.
Such a great song. We'll get there. It's
yeah.
one of the best B-sides ever.
Yep.
You know, there are promo videos for Strawberry Fields Forever and for Penny Lane, which we'll talk about. They were like, well, let's just do an entire like television film. Television, everyone's got TVs now. By 1967, most households in America and the UK are starting to get TVs. And so the problem with the Magical Mystery Tour film is it's really a project by a group of guys that don't think they can do wrong.
Yeah, and almost to their credit, they hadn't yet. You know what I mean? Yeah. And so, like, for someone like that, for someone like the Beatles who really hadn't done wrong, to do wrong, they did it, to their credit, the best way possible. You know what I mean? Like, they did.
They came up with a hell of a soundtrack.
Yeah. And also, didn't it air in black and white? And it wasn't supposed to. I mean, obviously, like, it was meant to be seen in color.
I think so, originally in the UK.
Yeah. And
it was like, well, it's kind of like watching the Adam West Batman in black and white, which apparently my father did because he doesn't have a color set until the 70s. It's supposed to be bright and vibrant, but it's like you're watching, if you've ever seen Magical Mystery Tour, the film, and I honestly, and this is coming from a diehard Beatles fan, I don't recommend it. It's just a drag, man. Like
I was going to say, it's just a drag.
Yeah, the musical sequences, like, again, I Am the Walrus, the title track, Your Mother Should Know, The Fool on the Hill, all great stuff. You can probably find that on YouTube.
Yeah.
You don't have to sit through like the hour and a half of bullshit that you get with this, because you watch this and you're just like, my God, this is terrible.
Yeah.
Like, how do they look at the dailies and we're just like, this is going to be
again, you know, they hadn't done wrong, so I think they just thought, let's, you know, we're on to something. It's an art house film.
Yeah, even now, like, McCartney's like, well, you know, a lot of like film students like
Spielberg.
Yeah, and it's like, blow it out your ass.
Come on, Paul. We all love you, but, you know, you can admit.
Yeah, you fucked up once. More than once. I've heard some of your solo stuff, but I've listened to Back to the Egg.
Oh, man.
The album that broke up the Wings.
Oh, man.
But
I'm buying you that on vinyl for your birthday, by the way.
Sweet.
That's gonna be your McCartney album.
Seeing McCartnney in August.
Oh, yeah.
But I mean, the title track, though,
great,
which kind of kicks it off.
Fantastic.
I always loved that. I always loved the rhythm line. Great drums, great bass.
Really strong drums. Really strong pounding drums from old Ringo.
Yeah. Which were kind of something that was a little lacking in Sgt. Pepper's as a whole,
sure.
The album as a whole.
Yeah.
Also, the melody's kind of like driven by like horns.
Yeah. You know, it's funny because a lot of people are they'll ask, like, what's the Beatles' signature sound? And the Beatles, I don't know if you could really pinpoint it, but something that when people want to evoke the Beatles sound, I've always found that horns is one of the things they use.
Probably the Penny Lane effect.
The Penny Lane effect, a lot of this album. But yeah, I really like the melody, the tempo changes. Like, you know, they kind of like are dragging at the end, you know, they roll up, and they kick right back into it. McCartney's vocals, you know, that kind of loud, helter-skelter-esque scream that he has, but it just still sounds so cool.
And you've got, like, John and George, like, in the background.
Oh, the columns, yeah.
Yeah, kind of almost like the Lovely Rita effect there.
Yeah, and it's almost got a Sgt. Pepper vibe, you know, for this magical mystery tour.
It very much was supposed to be Sgt. Pepper's 2 in a lot of respects.
Yeah, you know, they're riding in the town, and here come the Beatles Part 2, and you know, or Sgt. Pepper Part 2, as you were saying.
Yeah, it's kind of a concept album about that.
Yeah, when I was a kid and I first heard the song for the first time, this was like I still love the song, but I like fell in love with the song hardcore the first time I heard it. Really, really loved the track.
Just that driving, sexy bass too.
It's great.
Boom, boom, boom. Yeah, it's a great way to kick off the album. Definitely a highlight in the film, probably because the rest of the film hasn't progressed yet, where all the shit happens. But yeah, it's a great way to kick off Magical Mystery Tour. Here's the background. So they decide to make this TV movie, and their idea is we're gonna rent this big bus, paint it psychedelic colors, have a banner on it that says Magical Mystery Tour, because apparently like coach tours are big in the UK at this time, where they just kind of drive through the countryside, and they're like, we'll videotape everything, including whatever magical adventures happen. Unless, the camera is also ingesting acid, you're not going to see any magic adventures.
Mm-hmm.
You're just going to see like the Beatles like bored out of their fucking minds, like struggling to come up with material, because that's what the movie is. But no, the concept of this kind of galloping adventure through the British countryside is kind of omnipresent through the album. Though the next track is kind of it's one of the more it's not there. It's a little more melancholy than most McCartney songs. The Fool on the Hill.
Yeah.
Lennon, to his dying day, was like, that's a solid McCartney number. Like, he was a big fan of The Fool on the Hill.
Yeah, probably because it was called "Fool on the Hill" about McCartney. But like, I think it is a gold, like I would say, like, up there with like a golden standard of like McCartney melody and McCartney work. Really, really solid.
Apparently, he had written about it. The song was about Maharishi Yogi,
mm-hmm.
who they later hang out with in India the following year to study transcendental meditation, because McCartney's thing was like, Maharishi was always giggling, so people kind of dismissed him as being like slow, but he was like, actually one of the more clever people in the room. And so that he was the idea that the Fool on the Hill is kind of this wise guru type figure. And then have you seen the musical sequence from the film
mm-hmm.
where it's just like whimsical McCartney walking through the French countryside? It's okay. Honestly, I've never been the biggest fan of the Fool on the Hill.
Really?
Yeah, it just doesn't do it for me. Like, it's not a bad song. But
I like that there's kind of a I don't know exactly the word I'm looking for. It's not sinister, but there is,
because of the chorus.
Yeah, there's kind of a sinister tone to it. You know what I mean? That that he's got something up his sleeve and he's not all he seems. But I like the track. I think it's a solid melody. Not my favorite track by any means on the album. Definitely not even my favorite McCartney track, but I think a solid song, and something that I think that when you're putting together, for me at least, McCartney moments in the Beatles, I think "Fool on the Hill" is one of them that would go on a list for me, just in terms of the growth and different kind of styles of Paul McCartney.
Yeah, I mean, he kind of has that weird, like, almost like kazoo in the background.
Yeah,
and everything.
He does.
No, it's all right. It just never really kind of sprang out for me. But the next song was something constructed specifically for the film as kind of a transitionary piece. I think it's the unless you count the ambient singing, the first Beatles instrumental, "Flying."
Yeah.
I mean, it does what it serves.
It's fine.
Yeah, it's okay. It's an instrumental piece. I think it's the only track on Magical Mystery Tour where you can really distinctly hear Ringo singing.
Mm-hmm. Isn't it also credited, all of them?
Yes, it's one of the few Beatles tracks that is credited. I think the only other one is like "Dig It" off of "Let It Be," because that's another kind of jam session.
Dig it.
Yeah.
Dig it.
But, I mean, it's fine. Apparently the original recorded version is over 9 minutes long.
Wow.
Because, again, it was
a fine groove.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of the shorter Beatles songs. It's barely over 2 minutes, the version that shows up in the film. And here's the weirdest thing. Like, if you see it in the film, the sequence set to "Flying," they have portions of the Stargate from the end of 2001: A Space Odyssey.
Oh, really?
2001: A Space Odyssey doesn't come out until 1968. How the fuck did the Beatles get their hands on footage from...
Well, it's the Beatles, man.
I guess. Were they tight with Kubrick?
Maybe.
Just like, how did that happen? But yeah, it's okay. It's fine.
It's fine.
Yeah, it's not a standout. It's meant to be a transition track, and it is a transition track. I was never the biggest fan of the next song. It's the only Harrison track on the entire album.
Yeah.
Blue Jay Way. If you're talking like something with a sinister edge to
this
it.
is a very sinister song, and I remember really liking the song because it's like I'm pretty sure it's like the same chord the entire song, just strummed differently.
It's like a C, isn't it?
Yeah, like a C9 or something like that. I can't remember, but I remember as a kid I was like, oh cool, I learned a Beatles song in like 5 seconds. But It's very, very sinister, but I like it. I mean, I like the oddball Harrison tracks, which we'll get to a lot more with Yellow Submarine.
Just
but
not
like,
Within You Without You.
no, I'm not a big fan of that one. But I like this song. It's again, it's fine. It's sad that like again, Harrison kind of really hasn't brought much to the table in the last 2 albums. Just really 2 songs for him.
Yeah, because well, again, George Martin takes Only a Northern Song off of Sgt. Pepper's. He just hated that song. So
that's an example of a weird out there Harrison song that I really love.
Oh, I love
that song.
Now,
would it have been good on Pepper? Maybe. I would have taken it over the track that he ended up having on it.
Yeah. Me too. But I think this one's just kind of, I don't know if it's the fact that it's always kind of droning. That doesn't. Also, it almost goes for like 4 minutes.
I feel like they kind of not screwed up, because it's obviously an album that they did fantastic, and the Beatles. Who should I tell them what the fuck to do? But like, bad placement on these 2 tracks back to back.
Oh, going from flying
to Blue Jay Way. Birds, I guess, and they fly.
Yeah.
But like, it's 2 kind of like of the weaker tracks on the album back to back.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of like this really, because you start on the high of Magical Mystery Tour, the track Fool in the Hill, solid song, but it's still going. You're bringing you down.
It's down tempo.
Flying is bringing you way down because it's just there to be kind of a groove, and then Blue Jay Way is like walking in like Jack the Ripper territory. It's just creepy, man. And like the sounds
London
in the
After
background.
Midnight,
Yeah. So
he wrote it in. Harrison was doing press in Los Angeles for Sgt. Pepper's the summer of '67, and he's waiting for his friend on Blue Jay Way, and that's where he's like, "Oh, that's cool," and just
writes this like super sinister, scary song.
Kind of the same thing with like Cracker Box Palace off of what was that, 33 1/3?
I think so, yeah.
Where he's just like, he visits this place called Cracker Box Palace, and he's like, I'm going to put that one in the lyric mind book. I actually like Cracker Box Palace. It's one of my favorite Harrison solo tracks. Not like What Is Life level, but it's really, or My Sweet Lord, but it's really good.
Ooh, that's a good one.
Yeah, even if it is just He's So Fine by the Chiffons.
I mean, I know All Things Must Pass is like probably like the like, oh yeah, but that's still like, that's heaven in a track, man. Yeah. It's unbelievable.
You know what Harrison did after he lost the lawsuit to the Chiffons when they sued him for copyright infringement for copying, quote unquote, He's So Fine for My Sweet Lord? He bought the rights to He's So Fine. He was like, all right, cool.
That's so Harrison.
Georgie Porgy, make all the girls cry. I mean, it's an okay number.
Just put all the weird Harrison tracks on one CD.
This looking back, Lennon he was like, my favorite Beatles album was probably Magical Mystery Tour, if only because it was so damn weird.
It was weird,
and I think this, the way it's going so far, kind of really speaks to that. And then, of course, this isn't even the next song isn't an up-tempo song either.
No.
It's it's McCartney trying to basically write this like big old like dance number for
dance hall,
for the film. He writes Your Mother Should Know.
I really love this song a lot. And the anthology version is really cool because it's got this like military snare to it. And he starts it off, he's like, with Siggy in mouth. And I think he sings the whole song with a cigarette hanging out of his mouth. But the demo at least. I really like this song. Again, I like when McCartney plays the granny shit. I like when McCartney plays the stuff that he remembers hearing as a kid, on the radio or maybe seeing in person, and not being afraid to put that in a Beatles track. Again, he has the clout and the clout to really be able to do something like that in the Beatles. Harrison probably couldn't pull that off because he's got Lennon and McCartney breathing down his neck, unfortunately. But I like the track. I think it's fun. I think it's a fun track to have after the kind of creepy Blue Jay Way.
Yeah, it's definitely a nice little. And of course, in the musical number in the film, all the Beatles are wearing like tuxedos, and I feel like a lot of the Beatles, like Paul is Dead stuff, which I've never believed for a fucking second.
No, it's just fun. It's just fun to look at the stuff and see the little hidden stuff.
But a lot of those clues, I think, are on Magical Mystery.
Oh, a lot. Yeah. I mean, I used to be like the biggest nerd for the Paul is Dead stuff because like Sam was saying, I never believed it was true, but it was fun to be able to put the slide glass up to the bass drum and see like one dead or whatever with the diamond pointing up a Paul. I can't remember the exact what it ends up saying. The hand over the head with open palm supposedly was a symbol of death.
Yeah, the backwards McCartney on Sgt. Pepper's.
Backwards McCartney on Sgt. Pepper.
The lyrics to Day in the
He's
Life.
got OPD, I think, like on like one pronounced dead or whatever, like on his. But this one in Magical Mystery Tour, they all have the red flowers, and he has the black one.
Yeah.
Which again was the Beatles probably just being like, let's have fun with this.
Yeah.
And then with Strawberry Fields, as we get to later, there's the famous cranberry sauce, which is
Not
sounds like
cranberry sauce.
It sounds like, well, I mean,
Yeah.
growing up, I always thought it was I Buried Paul, but I swear to God, if you listen to it now, like you really listen to it, it's cranberry sauce.
Oh yeah.
It's cranberry sauce.
Oh.
It's like, you know what I mean? They just slow it down. But yeah, growing up, I remember hearing it for the first time in bed. I was like, Jesus Christ, this is
Well, I remember listening to it like as a kid, and I was just like, "That isn't cranberry sauce."
Yeah. Same thing, man. As a kid, I'd sit in my bed with my stupid headphones on and my stupid face, and I would just sit there like reading the lyrics along, and I buried Paul. And I'm like, holy shit. He did, and Blue Jay Way's on the scariest track anymore.
How do we not see that?
Yeah, seriously. But
yeah, your mother should know is fine.
Yeah.
It's fine.
Nice sorbet. McCartney's great at that.
Yeah, it's
Getting you back on track.
Yeah, and then of course the next song is, would you call it more infamous or famous? I was like famous.
Somehow both.
I Am the Walrus. I
Yes.
remember I Am the Walrus was the Beatles song that made me realize that not every kid grew up listening to the Beatles, certainly not to the same like level that I did. Because like I would be in like conversation with some of my friends like in like high school or whatever, and I'd just be like, yeah, totally, like I Am the Walrus. I forget what the context was, but with me you never really need one.
No.
So I was just like, yeah, and then they would just kind of look at me like, what the fuck is I Am the Walrus? And I think a lot of people listening to this album in 1967 were also like, what the fuck is I Am the Walrus?
I think nowadays, 2016, I would think, and tell me if I'm wrong, I think that I Am the Walrus is one of the most famous Beatles songs now. Like everybody knows I Am the Walrus now. I don't know if it's from Rock Band
I think they
or
know
what.
of it.
They know of it. Yeah, sure. I'm sure you can't be like, hey, sing me I Am the Walrus. They'll just go, I'm the Eggman. But it's kind of this insanely brilliant nightmare crazy dream,
It is essentially like, forget Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds.
Yeah.
I Am the Walrus is taking acid with John Lennon.
Yeah.
That this is like I Am the Walrus is what John Lennon sees and hears when he takes acid.
Yeah.
According to him, he wrote it on 3 separate acid trips, and his inspiration was he found out that kids in his old elementary school, one of their homework assignments was to analyze Beatles lyrics. And so he's like, okay. And so he drops acid, and then, he turns to his childhood friend Pete Shotton after he's done writing I'm the Walrus, and he just goes, let's see the little fuckers work that one out. And I mean,
always thinking of the kids.
yeah. The family man.
Yeah.
But no, I mean, it's bizarre, it's weird in a lot of ways. I think I'm the Walrus encapsulates the spirit of Magical Mystery Tour perhaps better than any other song on the album.
I agree with that 100%.
It's just so out there, so bizarre, and it kind of picks up the tempo a bit. It's always a highlight for me listening to the album. It's the performance of it in the film is a highlight because it breaks up the monotony of an otherwise shitty film.
Yeah.
You got anything to kind of?
I think it's during the I Am the Walrus scene in the film that there's a pair of shoes next to Ringo's bass drum that are supposedly full of blood. That was a Paul is dead clue, but which is totally pointless. But it's a classic. I mean, it's a classic Beatles track. I love the song. I remember hearing, not for years, I didn't hear them saying the smoke pot, everybody smoke pot. But
everybody's got one.
Yeah, but it's classic Beatles track.
Yeah, it's the height of psychedelia really for the Beatles, because they really tone it down after Magical Mystery Tour.
They do. I think they're kind of like, you know what? And they always got everywhere before everyone else did. And they're kind of like, you know what? We're done with this.
Well, apparently while, Harrison was doing press on the West Coast for Sgt. Pepper's that summer, the same trip where he writes Blue Jay Way, he goes up to San Francisco because he hears that's where the big Summer of Love movement's going. And he basically finds like all these like hippies. And he's just like, this isn't like swinging London at all.
Yeah, he's like, this sucks.
So he goes back and he tells Lennon about it, and they both like stop doing acid.
Yeah.
Albeit they both replace it with cocaine, and Lennon also starts doing heroin during the White Album sessions.
Yeah.
But the acid's gone.
The acid's gone.
So
good job, Lennon.
Yeah. Always thinking of the kids.
It's always thinking of the kids. And Baby's first song.
Yeah.
But no, I mean,
Two Virgins.
That's
with
right.
Yoko
Yeah.
Ono.
Yeah. Oh God.
If you've seen the album cover for Two Virgins,
I did on accident once.
then you've seen John Lennon's penis. I've seen John Lennon's penis.
John Lennon's
is
penis.
what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. Yeah.
Not great.
No.
But
it's a penis. So that's something that, like, never meet your heroes, never see their penises either. Because I was totally on accident. I was at a record store as a kid, and I was like, "Cool, oh God." But
I'm the Walrus.
I'm the Walrus. No, I'm the Walrus is great. I mean, they're all bringing it. And like you said, it's a perfect kind of almost summary or of what Magical Mystery Tour is.
It's the mission statement.
It is the mission
thesis.
statement.
Yeah.
Tis.
And just like the album, it makes zero fucking sense.
It makes zero sense.
But it's cool. It's a cool track. The next one is kind of the big number one hit off of side one. It's a song my father was never a big fan of. It's Hello Goodbye.
Boy oh boy do I love this song.
It's probably my favorite. Yeah.
It's
for the most part.
Because
on side one.
Yeah, even with I Am the Walrus, the Beatles hadn't recaptured the tempo and joy of Magical Mystery Tour, the track, until Hello Goodbye. And then I think they exceed it fairly high. Because, again, it's classic McCartney being like, watch me write a song by just doing opposites. That's the whole song. That's the whole lyric. And I love the video for it.
Which is the only time you see them perform in their
Sgt. Pepper. And like Ringo's got a small drum kit, which just seems like a pain in the ass for him. But it's cool because there's a great moment where you see Lennon and McCartney just having fun. Like they're doing that weird dance, that weird step dance, whatever.
Yeah.
And like Lennon's trying to be Elvis, and like they're just having fun.
Yeah, which is something that unfortunately doesn't, because this is really, well, I guess Yellow Submarine is like, this is one of the last albums in middle period Beatles.
Yeah.
Because you don't get the sense of fun really for most, if not all, of late period Beatles.
Yeah, and the song is just so damn catchy. It's vintage McCartney in the best way possible. I know I feel like we have different opinions on the end.
I mean, it's a praise, it's kind of like hey, low, but I think it goes on a little too.
I always, that was like one of my favorite parts of the song, where you think it's over. And I remember hearing, I think Paul McCartney, I think it's Paul McCartney telling the story, but I'm trying to remember if, I think he was talking to Heather Mills, because she wasn't asked to remove Beatles stuff, when she was like, I think that's what it was. And that song came on the radio, and he's like, listen to the end of this. The end was my favorite, the part I like the most, where, you think it's over, but it's not over. And she's like, okay. And what I take away from that story is that I love that McCartney was still getting jazzed about like Beatles songs, almost 50 years later. But yeah, I think it's pure fun, and it's unfortunate, like, we were saying, this album is a great album, and I think underrated and overlooked because of Sgt. Pepper. But if you think about it, and especially going track by track right now,
yeah, as we're like, it's pretty good, and then we're like going track by track, we're like, maybe.
Well, no, but not even that though. But going track by track, there's not a lot of fun on this album. You know what I mean? Like, especially side one.
Right. So like Sgt. Pepper's is like the good trip, and then Magical Mystery Tour is the come down.
Yeah, it's from the movie, which I obviously haven't seen, but like I know enough about. And yeah, like side one, like really going track by track, there's not a lot of whole fun going on. Like the songs are good, but the only time they're really, Magical Mystery Tour, like the track, they're having fun, like, hey, but there's almost a kind of sense of like dread, like, hey, we're sad, we got to leave you, and blah blah blah, dying to take you away, and then you get kind of this like, like almost like sinister dread going on, and then this track, it kind of kicks you back in.
Yeah, and I think for me, my favorite part of Hello Goodbye is the bridge.
Mm-hmm.
Wow,
Oh, yeah.
why do you say goodbye? It's almost like this. It's almost like electronica before electronica.
Yeah. Well, it's very solo McCartney. Like this is a song you could have heard on a, like you would buy on a solo McCartney I don't know, solo McCartney album. At least I would. The seeds are sown.
Yeah, they really are, and it's a fun number. Again, I think it goes on a little too long,
mm-hmm.
but it's
really, it's joyous.
Yeah, I mean, Hello Goodbye really is the celebration that bookends the songs written specifically for Magical Mystery Tour, because side 2 of Magical Mystery Tour is basically all their non-album singles released in 1967. And I guess Christmas of '66 with Strawberry Fields and Penny Lane, because the first song that kicks off of side 2 is Strawberry Fields Forever,
the big one.
Yeah, it's huge. I mean, this is the song that inspires the Beatles to basically raise their game, right?
Yep.
It's a song that I think I mentioned this story last week when we were talking. When we were talking Sgt. Pepper's, or whatever the last episode was. So Beatles are done touring. They have a 3-month gap in their schedule. Lennon goes off to Spain with Richard Lester, who directed the first 2 Beatles films, and would later direct Superman 2 and 3 to Diminished Returns.
Yeah.
To direct How I Won the War. It's for the first extended period of time in years, Lennon isn't hanging around the rest of the Beatles. And so he's sitting there alone in Spain, and he writes a song about his childhood, because close to where he grew up in Liverpool, there was a boys' home known as Strawberry Fields that he would always like to kind of run away to. It's where like the Salvation Army band would play whenever they were in town. It was just for him, it was the getaway. It was that kind of like Tom Sawyer on the island kind of area where he could run away and enjoy his childhood unfettered. And so I guess as he was finally separated from the Beatles, he started to think back to his time before the Beatles, and that's really where Strawberry Fields comes together. He plays it for the rest of the Beatles when they reconvene to kick off the Sgt. Pepper sessions, and it fucking like just blows them away.
Yeah.
And that's where, I mean, Strawberry Fields, it's just on another level, man.
Strawberry Fields is it's on the Mount Rushmore of Beatles tracks. It's up there with Eleanor Rigby and A Day in the Life as the most essential and important Beatles tracks of all time. Also, the fact that Sir George Martin doesn't get maybe enough credit with how he spliced this song together. And
it's what, 3 different speeds.
3 different speeds. The drumming on it from Ringo. The Paul is dead. I Buried Paul, Cranberry Sauce, whichever one you want to hear, because you can hear either one if you really want to listen. If you really want to hear it. But it's just in my early years as a Beatles fan, this was far and away my favorite Beatles song, and it's still one of my all-time favorite just songs in general. It's not as necessarily, it does give, it's funny because a song about a place I've never been to reminds me of so many places I have been to, For
me, it was always the line, "No one I think is in my tree. That means I must be high or low."
Mm-hmm.
The line that, you could either be the top of your class or the best, but because the line between being intelligent and just being an idiot. So,
Fool on the Hill.
Yeah, the fool on the hill is just so thin. I think Lennon identified a lot with that. He's like, you know what? Some days I think I'm like Jesus Christ, and some days, right, I think I'm just like I'm completely mad. I'm completely nutty. And that, I think, was the most telling line for him in the entire song.
Yeah, the line that always got me in this track was "Living is easy with eyes closed, misunderstanding all you see." I think I was just like a little kid hearing that. I was just like, whoa, it's so deep. What does it mean? I don't know what it means. Live your life, or, don't just let it pass you by, kind of thing. And, it's one of those tracks that you just love to just sit and listen to with headphones as loud as possible, because there's so much stuff to hear.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff going on. In a lot of ways, and even though it's not on the fucking album, Strawberry Fields Forever really is the mission statement for Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band.
In terms of them stepping their game up, absolutely.
Both sound-wise, and I think, we mentioned last episode that Sgt. Pepper's is a lot of the Beatles kind of like looking back at kind of like lost memories, be it like a circus from decades past, or be it all sorts of kind of lost mementos. The idea of the Salvation Army band that would play at Strawberry Fields Forever is Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band. It is a... And then, if we're talking outros like we did with Hello Goodbye, it's always... Sometimes if I'm, like, hanging out alone, maybe I'll stop the song before the Nightmare outro. Because it's so fucking creepy.
Yeah, it is pretty creepy. The wow, wow, wow. I would say without a doubt, it's my favorite Lennon track.
Period. Not
Solo,
just this album,
Beatles, not just this album. Favorite thing Lennon's ever done, without a doubt.
Yeah,
is this song.
It is this song that, and I think we said it as much last episode too. This is the song that led Brian Wilson to shelve the Beach Boys album "Smile" for like 40 years, because he's driving and he hears it on the radio and he just has to pull the car over and he's just like, I can't. They've beaten me to it. I can't meet or beat this. So it kind of like we also said last episode, apparently it's really easy to break Brian Wilson.
Guess so. Have you seen that movie he's in where it's Paul Dano plays young Brian Wilson and
it's what, Love and Music
John,
or something like that?
What was his face?
John Cusack.
John Cusack plays old one. I've heard good things and I wanted to check it out. But
Love and Mercy.
Love and Mercy.
Yeah, I've not actually seen that.
I'll have to check. Yeah, we'll get back to you on that one.
Yeah. Could be awful. Could be awesome. Who knows?
The trailer looked pretty solid. I don't know why it sounded so weird. But your mother should know. Your mother. Strawberry Fields. I could talk about this for the rest of the podcast seriously, because it
more
is
so than flying.
Yeah. Well, it's a masterpiece. It's you'll hear us said it a bunch earlier. Before this point, we'll say it a lot after. Great classic Beatles song. Blah 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 blah. But this is. As almost it's as good as it gets with the Beatles and Lennon and that genius and that masterpiece and that studio as an instrument, just everything you love about the Beatles, at least I love about
certainly
the Beatles
within this period,
yes, is in this song 100%.
So like I was saying, the Beatles were gobsmacked when Lennon first played Strawberry
Fields. How do you
Forever.
react to that? Like he comes in, he's like, hey, and he like hits play and just like, the fuck is this?
Yeah. What the fuck?
Well, on the Anthology, I always loved that before he would start playing it, he would do the Sugar Plum Fairy, and then kick into it. And you can hear on Anthology, it's really cool. One of the cool things about having that CD and having those great demos is you get to hear the evolution of what became that 3-speed song.
Yeah. And I forget which version you get on the Love version, because I think that's all one version. I don't think it's 3 different versions in Love.
Oh, really?
Either. But so the Beatles are gobsmacked hearing Strawberry Fields Forever. Paul McCartney goes home that night and writes his own song about his childhood in Liverpool, and that song's Penny Lane.
Oh man, yeah. If Strawberry Fields encapsulates kind of the perfect Lennon track, writing about himself and writing about this memory and having
more surreal.
Yeah, exactly. Penny Lane is the quintessential. You could almost say. I wouldn't say it is, but it's very much up there with the quintessential Paul McCartney track for him exactly, being inspired by Lennon and writing, his version of Strawberry Fields as Penny Lane. It's so catchy and wonderful and whimsical.
It really, it really, like you're saying, it works as kind of if you're looking at the dichotomy, the juxtaposition of their two songwriting styles. Yeah, you've got the more cerebral, out there Lennon, and then you've got the very melodic, very like bright, up-tempo McCartney doing Penny Lane. And honest to God, and I'm more of a Lennon guy than a McCartney guy, and this is probably going to get me stoned in some circles, but I like Penny Lane better than Strawberry Fields Forever.
It's funny because I'm more a McCartney guy than a Lennon guy, and I like Strawberry Fields more than Penny Lane. And that's not like, fuck Penny Lane. And I'm sure you're not like, fuck Strawberry Fields. Yeah. It's just, Strawberry Fields... smacked me over the head when I heard it, and I love Penny Lane, but Strawberry Fields are just something else. But yeah, Penny Lane is great, man. It's a great Paul McCartney track. It
really is. And I as a correction from the last episode, I said they took Penny Lane and Strawberry Fields Forever off of Sgt. Pepper's so they could release a Christmas time single in time for the Christmas '66. And Strawberry Fields Forever doesn't do that well initially on the radio. And I think I said last episode that Penny Lane doesn't either. Penny Lane actually hits number 1 on the U.S. charts. It actually does do pretty well. I don't think as well as I think putting out a double A side, they were hoping that both would go to number 1. But it's just such a it's got horns.
It's got, yeah. Like I said, like you were saying, I think this is like when people think of what's that Beatles sound. A lot of times, I think whether they know it or not, they're thinking of Penny Lane.
Yeah, it's fantastic. You got the French horns going on. I always loved the both this and Strawberry Fields got promo films. The promo film for Strawberry Fields is just them hanging out in a field and painting
a tree,
in a tree and painting a piano,
like running around and like wrapping the tree up and
like a Mayfair pole. But I like the Penny Lane video better.
Oh, me too. I do like the Penny Lane video better. Like partying on a horse, like they're having like a picnic. Yeah,
as the Beatles would do. In 66, 67.
I remember McCartney always they liked putting like dirty little lyrics in their songs, and the fireman
love, fish and finger
pies,
which
classic.
Is look it up, kids.
Yeah.
We'll tell you when you're older.
Yeah, when you're older.
Yeah, I always loved the beginning and ending of the Penny Lane video where you see Lennon just walking through the streets, just kind of like very introspective, very kind of withdrawn, very pensive, because he's thinking about his future as much as it perhaps more so than he had any time so far during his time with the Beatles.
Thinking like maybe this isn't gonna last forever.
Yeah, kind of. He's starting to grow up. They're all starting to grow up, and Lennon's like the second oldest person in the band.
Yeah.
At this point, he's at the ripe old age of when this album comes out. He's at the ripe old age of 27. Which it's wild because we're older than the Beatles when they put out Sgt. Pepper's and Magical Mystery Tour now.
Once we hit 30, man, that's when we're done. You know what I mean? Because McCartney was 29 when he was no longer a Beatle.
But he's not the youngest Beatle.
Yeah. Harrison, well, I mean, I'm holding on to McCartney.
It's fair. It's fine. But it's Penny Lane for me is the standout of the two songs that inspired Sgt. Pepper's.
Yeah. I mean, you're gonna win either way.
Yeah, they're both. You're
going to win either way.
Having said that, my next track is actually my favorite song on the entire album.
It's a good one.
There's a song on this album, not "I'm the Walrus," not "Magical Mystery Tour," not "Hello Goodbye,"
not "Flying,"
not "Flying," not
Baby's first instrumental.
Yeah. With how do they get the fucking Stargate?
How do they do it?
Yeah. A year before the movie came out. Baby, You're a Rich Man, which was immortalized at the end of The Social Network.
That's right. Oh, shit. Yeah. Oh, man, I forgot about it. It's been a while since I've seen that movie.
It's a great fucking movie.
It is a great movie. Should have won Best Picture.
Yeah, Aaron Sorkin, man. He, say what you will about Studio 60 on the Sunset Strip or bits of The Newsroom. Because there are bits of The Newsroom that aren't fucking great at all.
Yeah, but, I love the shit out of that show.
I like the pilot.
Oh, the pilot's the best.
My problem is with The Newsroom, and we'll get back to the Beatles, I swear to Christ.
Yeah, whatever.
But yeah, he spends a lot of time, I think, in The Newsroom kind of punching down, which is it doesn't suit him well.
Would you say The Social Network's your favorite Sorkin film?
I would put Steve Jobs over.
Would you? Okay, yeah. I would still say Social Network, just by a little bit.
It's great.
Yeah,
they're both great fucking movies, but I need
to watch it again because I totally forgot Baby You're a Rich Man until you said it. I was like, oh, that's right, because I remember.
It's funny. It was like end of the film.
It was like a sold out show at Fairfax Corner when I saw it, and as soon as it started playing, everyone's head just started bobbing along because it's so damn good. You keep all your money in a big brown bag inside a zoo.
What's the thing to do, baby? It's. If we're talking happy fucking songs, there is no song on this entire album that's happier than Baby You're a Rich Man.
Yeah.
You hear it during the choruses, you hear it during the outro. This is the celebration song for me.
It is.
This is, and it was a song that Lennon had written a song about beautiful people, and McCartney had written a song Baby You're a Rich Man, And in true Lennon-McCartney fashion, when everything's copacetic between those two, they combined it and it became Baby You're a Rich Man.
It's so good.
And it's like the claveline that kind of has that weird, like, it's weird because the claveline, I think, is a keyboard instrument, but it doesn't sound like a keyboard instrument.
No, it doesn't.
It sounds kind of like something that belongs on Within You Without You.
Yeah.
But it's awesome. It's like, this is the song you play on a bright summer day when you're driving with the windows down. And you can't help but sing along because it's like this is your free falling Jerry Maguire moment.
Yeah.
But it's better than free falling.
It is.
It's better than Jerry Maguire.
Hey now. I love Jerry Maguire. But yeah, no, Baby You're a Rich Man is great. Yeah, like, you know, it's everything. It helps help right the wrongs, and it's not even really wrongs of the album, or a sense like it's just there is kind of like that come down dread to it. Where this one you're just like, hey, have fun. It's almost like the Beatles reminding themselves that we're the Beatles. Well,
it was a song that Baby You're a Rich Man was originally written and recorded as for Yellow Submarine, because in 67, by the end of 67, pre-production and all that's already started on Yellow Submarine, their first and I guess only animated movie. And originally, it was written as supposed to be an original song that was going to be in that film's soundtrack. And they play an excerpt from it towards the end of the film when they first get to Pepperland, like when they get through the Sea of Time or whatever, or pick up Jeremy. And
Jeremy.
Yeah. Jeremy spoke in class today.
Hip, 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 hip. Try to forget this. Try to forget this.
The next podcast series, Pearl Jam.
Oof.
Oh God.
I'll help you on that track. I don't know that much about Pearl Jam.
I won't. One of my roommates in college was all about Pearl Jam and the Smashing Pumpkins. I love the Smashing Pumpkins.
Yeah.
Note how I didn't say Pearl Jam.
Try to forget this.
It's not even my favorite. Even Flow is probably my favorite.
I do love Jeremy.
Even Flow.
Jeremy though, like that fucking video, dude. Holy shit.
That's a
talk about creepy and sinister.
That's yeah. Alice in Chains had a lot of.
I like Alice in Chains more than Pearl
Alice in
Jam.
Chains. Absolutely, yeah. I'll take them over Lane Staley, sure, over Pearl Jam. Though 10's like a fine album, but anyway, the Eddie Vedder face, the
on the blackboard.
But this, I mean, it's such a good, like, Baby You're a Rich Man is just such a good song. But yeah, they
I wish we could just play it right now, but we can't do that.
Yeah, but they needed a B-side for All You Need Is Love, because that came out as part of the Our World broadcast, and it is a number one album or a number one single, and the B-side for it, they're like, oh shit, we need to put something, and for whatever reason they're like, not only a northern song,
damn it,
yeah, let's do Baby You're a Rich Man. And it's honestly, I think Baby You're a Rich Man could be an ace. I like Baby You're a Rich Man more than All You Need Is Love.
Yeah, it's more interesting, that's for sure.
And then All You Need Is Love closes out the album.
Yeah.
It's a fine song. All You Need Is Love, you could argue, is the mission statement for the Beatles as a whole.
Yeah, definitely.
It's the weird string opening where they're like
bum ba-dum bum 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 ba-dum.
They play La Marseillaise, which is like the French national anthem.
It's the Beatles, man. Isn't it the first like satellite broadcast ever?
There's like 92 million people watching them play. They had like 17 million people watch them play the Ed Sullivan Show. Fast forward 3 years, not over 90 million people around the world are watching them play the Our World broadcast.
There's all kinds of famous people there. I think Jagger and Richards are there.
And Marian Faithfull, who's dating Jagger at the time, are in the audience. They help sing the outro.
Once again, famous for her singing on the song "Memory Remains" off of Reload.
Is that the highlight off that Metallica album?
No, that would be Fixer. But it's a good song. I mean, it's it is the mission statement. My favorite part of this is when John starts singing "She Loves You" at the very end.
Well, isn't it Paul that sings?
Is it? Oh, it is Paul. It's Paul. You're right. I think John does another.
He goes
He says yesterday.
Yeah,
and then he goes yesterday. Yeah, that's what it is.
There's a nod to yesterday, and then Paul starts singing "She Loves You."
That is so. Like, I don't know why.
I love it when they embrace their own mythology.
Yeah, that is so cool.
Yeah.
And I feel like it was like it must have been spur of the moment. Like it's just
it's kind of like an "I Am the Walrus" to go back when like in a very offhand lyric, John makes the nod towards Lucy in the Sky. See how they fly like Lucy in the sky. See how they run.
Yeah, and then later on with Glass Onion, they'll reference the Beatles songs probably more than any other song. But like, I always love when Lennon and McCartney do that. Like, because sometimes, because sometimes you're like, do they even like this stuff? And you know what I mean? Like, do they like that early stuff? And like the fact that like they do that is just so cool. I think that's just one of the coolest moments in the album for me.
Mm-hmm. And it's a good way to kind of kick off the album. I kind of wish it ended with "Baby You're a Rich Man." Kind of ends with that like on that like emotional high. Mm-hmm. But no, you kind of get because it's a little more down tempo. Like
as great as Strawberry Fields is, I feel like All You Need Is Love would have been a good side 2 opener.
Yeah,
like the snare and just kicking right into it.
Yeah.
But the track listing doesn't matter that much anyway, unless you're flying in Blue Jay way. But but we get it. They're birds. They're birds.
Birds of a feather
flock together because they're birds.
Together.
Yeah. It's because.
Why don't you make like a tree and get out of here?
Yeah, we make a tree and get the fuck out of here. Yeah, that's Magical Mystery Tour. Maybe we realized as we're doing this that it's a downer of an album.
Yeah, it really is kind of like like
it puts you in like a fucking like
it's the Hangover, isn't it?
Yeah, like Eeyore, just like the storm cloud over top you, and you're like, oh yeah,
oh bother.
I guess you do need love, but
yeah,
living
is easy with your eyes closed, misunderstanding all you see.
And then Baby Richmond kicks in, you're like, fuck yeah!
Hello, goodbye.
Yeah, I mean, again, great moments, great songs. You get songs on here that I would put up with the greatest Beatles songs of all time.
Yeah. Is it one of the more iconic? I mean, the crazy thing is the more iconic songs off of Magical Mystery Tour weren't recorded for.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. We kind of like to touch on.
Before.
We kind of like to touch on, or maybe I like to touch on. Where do you think the album cover falls for you?
It's one of the least iconic.
It's least iconic. Okay, I always like that they were in like stupid little outfits,
they're in their walrus outfits and stuff. And
before Tusk.
Yeah, John Lennon looked back. Obviously he's wearing the walrus costume. He writes "I Am the Walrus." He looks back and he's like, in the Walrus and the Carpenter by Lewis Carroll, which inspired "I Am the Walrus." The walrus is the fucking bad guy.
Yeah. Whoops.
He makes that realization. He's like, well, it wouldn't have been the same. I am the carpenter.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's an interesting album. It's really a Frankenstein of an album, just like leftovers. But Beatles leftovers are better than like Doors, like Filet Mignon.
Oh, they can't all be the soft parade.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, my favorite Doors album is probably Morrison Hotel.
That's a beast.
And L.A. Woman probably takes the number 2 slot.
Their debut album's really good too.
Their
self-titled
probably makes the
Doors.
number 2. There's really only like 3 good Doors albums, and 3 is me being generous. Just like I would say, there's only like 2 good Van Halen albums.
Again, like I don't know, like I don't listen. Like Van Halen I've ever listened to has just been like the tracks here and there. I've never like really listened to like the albums all the way through. But just the noodling drives me fucking insane.
Not an Eddie Van Halen fan?
I mean,
or a David Lee Roth fan?
Yeah, I mean, I appreciate what Eddie Van Halen's done for guitar and stuff like that. But I've never liked the noodling stuff. Like like their "You Really Got Me" is like the most noodle crazed schlock of all time.
My favorite Van Halen song is "Dance the Night Away" off of Van Halen 2.
That's a good one. I like "Running with the Devil"
off of their self-titled album is their best album. Their debut album, without a doubt. But Magical Mystery Tour, maybe not the Beatles' best album, but it's still a solid effort.
It's solid.
Yeah. And I think it holds up better than I think I would take Magical Mystery Tour over as a whole the White Album. I would take it over Let It Be as a whole.
Over Let It Be, yes, I wouldn't say the White Album for me.
Sure.
But we'll talk about that next time later.
Yeah. Well, next time we got probably what's going to be our shortest.
Oh yeah, that's true. Yeah, that's right. We got you got the other one.
Yeah, the what basically closes out the Beatles' middle psychedelic period, and you'll hear more about it next week on Welcome to Slaggers.
Welcome to Slathers.
Slaggers.
Welcome to Slaggers.
Or Deconstructing the Beatles, whatever we call this thing. What's in a name, eh? But yeah, so this has been another installment of Deconstructing the Beatles. I'm Sam.
I'm Jake.
Bye. This has been another Geek Out production. If you enjoyed what you heard, hey, we've got a new commentary every Monday. We've got a special episode every Friday. Of course, there's the usual catching up show every Wednesday. And you get book club episodes just about every Tuesday these days. Thanks for listening.